Ours are terrible times. Flood times, famine times, fire times, mass extinction times, end times, the apocalypse, or at least an apocalypse. We are forced through violent and brutal enculturation into participation with this system of illusion and disenchantment, which steals the meaning from our lives and the liveliness from our days, the predictive timeliness of our own destruction marching forward uninterrupted. Tides of climate crisis, rising sea levels, floods of refugees, water pushing people out of places and people becoming emissaries of that water. The earth is bursting out with symbolic tears and watery semiotics, sobbing all over themselves. And yet, with this challenge at our doorstep, this crying in our hearts, so many of us continue to live these shrunken lives. Because without this system, how could we eat? Where would we sleep? How else could we imagine possibly being? How will we stay safe? And yet, safety is a fiction, an illusion, a bubble waiting to be popped. So many of our kin are not safe, and their stories, their horror, feeds and sustains these bubbles of privilege. The earth howls and wails, rumbles and rails, birthing up monstrous shadows from untended action. And yet, there is wisdom in shadows, reclamation and rebirth in the places where dark things dwell, the fungal action of rhizomatic diffraction weaving in and out of the composting of all beings. When we are ready to be kin with those who are red of tooth and claw, we learn from them to be bold and creative, or beautiful and destructive, in action, dancing, living, thriving on the knife edge of this death march. Then we hear the call of the living earth. We are called in this moment to boldly become something else, something different, something greater. Then we feel invited to partner with mythic flows outside the bounds of time, to become stories telling stories to stories. What have we got to lose? We may lose ourselves, but what type of selfhoods are they? We may lose this culture, and in it lose a certain delicious addiction to the non-reality which grinds us down against the wheel of domination, which steals all our queer and nimble bits, until we resemble something standardized that they find pleasing. We may lose our lives, but what does that even mean when all the energy of the ancestors, which moves with and through us as their manifest culmination, is being siphoned off by an unbound nightmare which seeks to flatten, standardize, and consume us? What harm can there possibly be to dancing out on this limb when we are already collectively driving off a cliff? To collaborate and revel, to tell stories of refuge and prophecies of salvation together, is more than just an art. It is a lifeway, one capable of coming to thrive in the shadowed corners and cracks of nightmare, partnering with what beings we find there. When we bravely step through the dreaming portal into these mythic territories, we meet generous earth flows, pattern wisdom, and heroic narratives divined from the land and its denizens. We can learn to cultivate the synchronization of our stories and the concordant thrumming of deeper realms, and find a way to weave narrative futures together from what we are able to liberate from the thrall of nightmare. Something is bubbling up from deep within the earth, begging that we speak its name, share in the imaginal creation of its myths, become the material body of its story. Are you ready?